are the nations that were cast out? Exodus 34, 11 through 12 and verse 24 says, Observe you that which I command you this day. Behold, I drive out before you the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with inhabitants of the land where you go, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you. For I will cast out the nations before you, and enlarge your borders. Neither shall any man desire your land, when you shall go up to appear before the Lord your God 3 times in the year. Now who were these nations that the Lord cast out of the land? They were the 7 nations of Canaan, plus the Amorites, and several others. And we're going to get to those further along in the study, because they do have very much to do with the subject that we're talking about. And we're going to talk about the whole reason that God cast them out. And a lot of people think, oh, that was just genocide. No, it wasn't. God had a reason for casting these nations out. He had a reason for telling the children of Israel to kill them. And we're going to find out what those reasons were. If you read chapters 18 through 34, it mentions some terrible sexual sins that they would be stoned for. And it said that all 7 nations plus others did these things. But God's people were not to do them. They were to obey Him. Those nations would be cast out. Now, what does it mean when God says to be cast out? It means to send away, cast out, forsake, give up, leave, let depart, push away, put forth. When God puts you out, you are out. And there's no way back in. When God puts you out, it's kind of like the door on the ark. When God shut the door on Noah's ark, Noah couldn't open that door. No man could open that door. Only God could open that door. So when God shut that door, no one else got in that ark. God had already warned them. They'd already been given, I believe it was 120 years, and no one believed Him until the rain started. And we live in a world like that today. No one believes you, but when the rain starts, they're going to be trying to get in the door, and it's going to be too late. But Deuteronomy chapter 7:1 says, When the Lord your God shall bring you into the land where you go to possess it, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations, greater and mightier than you. And greater means abundant in quantity, size, age, or number, rank, and quality. And mighty is powerful. The Hebrew says like a paw, like a lion's paw, an animal's paw. It's the strength of the lion or the wildcat, so powerful it can crush or destroy. Numbers 13, 32 through 33 says, And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched to the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search, it is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Anak, the sons of Anak, are the Nephilim. It comes from the word Nephil or Nephil. It means to eat up the inhabitants. It's the literal word used. When it says they eat up the inhabitants here, it says a land that eats up the inhabitants. It's a literal word used for eating. It's the Hebrew word akal. It means to eat. The sons of Anak are the Nephilim. The word for giants here is the Nephil, or the Nephilim, singular of Nephil. Nephilim, single of Nephilim. But in the actual, it is really the plural form. When it says eats up the inhabitants, it is a literal word used for eating. I want you to get that. Enoch mentions that they were so big that there wasn't enough for them to eat, so they began to eat people. They were men of a great height, from the Hebrew. That word means of a great height. They were cannibals. The word land in this verse is aretz, and aretz means earth, whereas the Hebrew word adamah means ground, because there's 2 words used for earth, aretz and adamah. Adamah means ground. The name Adam Adamah actually comes from the name Adam. Please forgive me, the traffic's throwing my thoughts off. But Adamah also means country, nation, and common. The land, aretz, as meaning the ground, can't eat the ones who dwell there. I mean, the Adamah. Let me repeat that. The land is meaning the ground, Adamah, can't eat the ones who dwell there. Aretz, the word used here for land in this verse, is always in reference to not just the land, but those who inhabit it. That is why Israel is called Aretz Israel or Yisrael. It's in reference to the land and its people. Israel, whom God has given the land to. There are other giants in the land of Canaan too, and some are the Rephaim, from the name Rapha. That's a familiar name to some of you, I'm sure, because you've heard God's name is Yahweh Rapha or Jehovah Rapha. But God is not a Rephaim, so don't think that's what I'm saying. But it means healer, and it does give you a hint about this tribe of giants. But there is a lesser known meaning for this word Rapha, which we're going to get into at some point. One of the church fathers, Justin Martyr, had this to say about the Nephilim. Whence also the poets and mythologists, not knowing that it was angels and those demons who had begotten by them that did these things to men and women and cities and nations, which they related, ascribed them to God himself and to the offspring of those who are called his brothers, Neptune and Pluto, and to the children again of these their offspring. For whatever name each of the angels had given to themselves and his children, by that name they called them. Even Justin tells you who they were and how they tried to associate their deeds to a god, and tells you that these children of this union included Neptune and Pluto. Now we're talking about Justin Martyr, one of the early church fathers. And whatever their first generation fathers called themselves, their children accepted that name and went by that name. So that shows you our church fathers understood the sons of God to be the angels, and their children were demons at death. And the so-called gods, like Neptune and Pluto, amongst many others, were the seed of these fallen ones, the seed of the serpent. And these giants took on the names which were later used in planets in Greek mythology. Planets Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto did not originate in Greek mythology. These were the names of giants. These were the names of the fallen ones and their seed. Their names became the mythology among the Greeks. And so we're going to stop right there. But I hope you're getting something out of the series. I hope somebody's watching this series. I know at times I probably don't make myself quite clear, but I usually teach inside and outside. There are a lot of distractions, and so it's a lot harder for me sometimes to get my point across. But I hope that I am making the point and getting it across, because these children, these beings, fallen angels, were the seed of the serpent, and they're the ones who eventually became the giants of Greek mythology. So that tells you who the 7 nations were worshiping. It tells you who the children of Israel were worshiping, and they were not worshiping just a piece of wood or stone out here. They were actually worshiping the fallen ones in their seed. And that's why God so much hated idolatry, because by worshiping these beings, they were worshiping Satan. And this is what Satan has wanted from the beginning, is the worship of man. He's wanted to take from God what belonged to God for himself. And this is how he did it. It was through the fallen ones, the fallen angels, and their offspring. And so that's why God hates idolatry. Like I said, it does. God bless you, and we'll get back to this soon.